Lori, do you have an idea of how many people we're expecting today?
I had 41 registrants about an hour ago,
Okay.
so I'm not sure how many more have jumped on since.
Okay. It looks like about 49 are in, 50 are in. We'll give another minute or so for people to jump in. We did this one a little differently this time. Typically, when you have a big group of folks, you would do a webinar and you wouldn't be able to see everybody, and people could just chime in using chat or Q&A, which is still the case. You can still use those things, the chat especially. You may not see the Q&A. But if you have a question during the meeting, either put it in the chat or you can raise your hand virtually when you go into either click on the participants icon at the bottom, and that will allow you to raise your hand, find yourself, and I believe if you go to more, it will show you. You have a different view than I do, perhaps. So Allie and Brad, your deans, are going to help me kind of manage. There they are. See Allie waving. Are going to help me manage all of you folks, and also Sarah and Lori are in today. Sarah Fuchslin and Lori should be here, who are also going to help kind of track people and see if people have specific questions. So I'm trusting none of you are going to Zoom bomb us and start unmuting yourself and posting crazy things. But excuse me, one of the things that you should see when you become a Zoom, when you create a Zoom meeting and you have the updated Zoom service, is you should see a security bar at the bottom, a security icon that allows you as a host to manage your participants a little better. And if you do get Zoom bombed, you can shut the meeting down that way as well, or remove somebody from the meeting. Just a little piece of information there. So if you can, and you're looking, well enough and, feeling comfortable, if you can turn on your cameras so that we can see you, that would be lovely. I see lots of folks at the end here with their names, but not their faces. So if you're willing to do that, I would appreciate it, just so we can all see each other. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share. Is Jeff on yet?
Yeah, I'm here, Michelle.
Okay, great. Steve Richardson says, he's eating something and he'll be on in a second. You'll see that a lot. People taking a little bathroom break, or and if you need to stop your video like I am, you can put a nice picture up and people can see, obviously, your smiling face. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen to go through the presentation.
Computer is, you might need to fill some time.
Yeah, I know.
Well, a nice musical interlude. We could do that.
I'm not sure you want that. I could try singing. I don't know why this is all of a sudden very slow. Maybe it's because so many of you are on.
Jeff, I like your background.
Yeah, I'm just hanging out on campus in front of the University Center. I figured I've been on all these president meetings with people from around the state, and I saw a lot of people doing it with their logo. It's kind of how we keep track of who's on the call. It's like, oh, there's, Rancho Santiago College. There's, San Diego Mesa. So thank you.
Feel free to look around at everybody's pictures and check out their houses and say hello if you'd like.
One thing that I'm sure, most of you know, but just a little Zoom tip when you have a large group like this, and especially if you want to see your class, there is a little bar in the middle. So you may see Michelle's screen taking up like 90% of your screen and then only a couple of faces over on the one side. There's a little bar that you could actually move more central, and then it shows up. You could see more faces if that's important to you. So just know that's an option.
And that's a good point too, Jeff, because I often find in a Zoom presentation that you might see the people and you can't see the screen that's being shared. So you can manipulate that a little bit and either show just the speaker or, hide that or minimize that as well.
Loading. I have loading.
Look at that.
Yay!
So I don't know how many of you live in areas that have challenging technology, but I wasn't having any trouble until all of you got on. Now it's started to get really slow. I'm going to blame the whole group. So we did, there it is. We did do this meeting, as I said, in this way, kind of not anticipating necessarily quite so many people, but I think it's great if you'll just leave your computers muted until maybe you can get somebody's attention and be called on. That would be great, so we're not kind of talking all over one another and take turns. And it could be a good idea to probably leave questions to the very end, so hold on to your questions or put them in the chat and somebody will try to respond. Okay, great. Here it is, our all faculty meeting for April 10th. So welcome to all of you. You made it through the first week. Some of you may still be teaching this afternoon, but I think probably if you're here, you're done for the week. And congratulations. I know that it's been a challenge and it hasn't necessarily always been as smooth as you might have expected it to be, or maybe it has gone, maybe it's gone a little easier than you thought and you're learning new things. So that's exciting. Welcome. Okay. I'm going to go to the next slide. So we're going to start out here just a little bit of a welcome and a check-in. And I want to share, we had a great meeting with an outside speaker in our President's Advisory Council meeting yesterday, who came in to kind of help us manage our remote work teams a little bit better. And some of the things as he was sharing with us, he was really great. And as he was sharing with us, I was thinking, gosh, some of these things would be really helpful to remind faculty of. And I'm sure you've had a lot of other ideas that have come to you this week, or kind of been surprised by things that you hadn't anticipated from working remotely. So some of the ideas that he kind of shared with us is that sometimes it's difficult, and I'm going to ask Jeff and others to chime in who were in that meeting, is that sometimes you get to working at home and all of those boundaries that you might have when you've got your office on campus, or maybe you've got other workspaces to go to, those boundaries become less clear. So you've got kids, you've got pets, you've got other family members, or even not those distractions, but just trying to distinguish, like, when am I just at home relaxing and when am I working? So I think that's really important to figure out, how do I set those boundaries? And one of the ideas that he gave us was to create kind of cognitive triggers. So things that kind of let you know, okay, now I'm headed to work, right? I'm gonna do my commute in, whether it's walking from the living room to another room, or just setting your computer up, or having a certain lamp or a mug or something that triggers you that, okay, now I'm sitting down to work. And then when you separate from that, you're able to kind of relax and go back to being with your family or being at home. The other thing that I've found really is that I'm an introvert, so I feel like I've had a lot of communication with people this past couple of weeks, because Zoom is so crazy. But it is really important, I think, to check in with other people and to check in with your students on a personal level too. You don't have to be their counselor. You don't have to try to solve their personal problems, but just making sure they're doing okay. Do they need any support that you can help provide? And then just making connections with people and colleagues. It's really important to let people know that you're still there and you're making connections with them. And one of the things that, the reason that I asked if you might be able to turn on your screens was that it's good to see people too, to have that face-to-face, to be able to look into each other's eyes and to see, how are you doing and what can I help you with? And I think, that doesn't have to happen all the time, because sometimes you just need, maybe you just want to resolve something through an email or through a phone call, but really making sure that you do appropriately for you check in with students and other colleagues, your colleagues as other faculty, but also maybe some of the staff. I've already heard from some of the staff that that you're checking in with them, you're calling them, you're making sure they're doing okay and seeing if they need anything. I know Lori received a little visit from somebody the other day with a nice flower at a distance. So those kinds of things are important in this time because we're all being challenged in a lot of ways. Looking at other ways to connect with people, I think that's really important. This is something else he emphasized. It doesn't always have to be Zoom. It doesn't always have to be electronic. You can try to reach out, maybe some of those old-fashioned ways of connecting with one another, whether it's family or friends. It's really important as well. Taking care of yourself. I think that's probably the thing that I know I'm struggling the most with. To separate, it goes back to those boundaries. How do you keep from just sitting and working all day? This speaker yesterday showed us just the ways in which we already sit so much in our jobs that now we're doing everything electronically. The temptation is to just get into your chair in the morning and you're just sitting all day Zooming or talking with people or writing emails or working on the computer. So taking regular breaks, stretching. I mean, some of you are already doing this. I know it may be preaching to the choir, but some of the meditation apps that people have or even other meditation practices, just standing up, walking around, taking regular breaks is really important. And then also setting the rules of engagement. It's, letting people know, when are you working? When are you not working? How best to reach you? What works for you in terms of communication and what you need? So those are just a few little remote tips. I'm seeing a lot of things coming through in the chat. Is there anybody who, Brad's sharing some?
Michelle, I could just add to that since I was in the training. I mean, I think the first thing I would say is probably, most of you as faculty members, you're a lot more adept at this, right? Because you've been doing this for a long time, especially if you're teaching online or you're an adjunct faculty member and your home is already your office. So these are a lot of things, for a lot of our on-campus staff, they're used to having a defined set of hours, going to a defined place every day, day in and day out. So may not have as many of these kind of tips. And so that's who this was focused at. But I think there's probably some things in here we could all learn from it. And I think definitely, I think one thing that I see with LTCC faculty is you do a great job getting back to students and whatnot in a timely fashion. But, one of the tips from the remote work trainer was like, set some clear guidelines. Like, this is when you can expect to hear back from me. This is when I'm available for a Zoom call. This is when I'm available to respond to email. So that way you don't find yourself, kind of working 24/7 every day. I think one thing that we found as a team is now that we're all kind of self-isolated at home, it's easy to basically roll out of bed, right into your text messages and your emails, jump in front of your computer and then go to sleep at night reading articles about coronavirus and realize that you never did anything else but work and stress out about the world all day long. So that was his big takeaway. For me was, just set some time to get up and take a lunchtime walk or, really kind of try and put your life into little boundaries and, have an area that you go to work in your house, even if that's just your kitchen table or your desk or a part of your bedroom or whatever it is. And then at some point leave work. So just a couple tips that came out of that, I think many of you are probably done in your kind of careers of teaching, but just some tips to share with this group.
Great, thanks, Jeff. Feel free also to chime in, you guys, if you want, in the chat room and let people know what things you're doing to create those boundaries, and also just some self-care, whether it's drinking water or looking on, if our Connect Community Ed has some Facebook stretching that they're doing and things like that. I know Elizabeth Ballant has signed up for the wine class that's happening on Wednesday evenings. So there might be other ways to reach out and connect with people as well. Brad posted in the chat a link to, I assume, a mindfulness or some information about Headspace. Is that what that is, Brad? It's a mindfulness app. And yeah, and then also Carla has put some information on as well. So check that chat out as well for other tips. So next, just wanted to kind of give you a few little updates of things that are more work related for specifics related to faculty. Some of you have received an update on the summer fall schedule, and we're going ahead and reviewing that. Your faculty leads are checking in with that. The deans are looking at it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact your faculty lead or your dean in your area. And we'll be doing a kind of a big look and then taking a more specific look at that as well, kind of trying to anticipate where we might be in the summer, where we might be in the fall, without really having the answers right now as to how the situation is going to evolve. We've also started looking at the winter-spring schedule. I know sometimes it's really hard to think forward. I think I said to Jeff the other day, when do we go back to kind of talking about the stuff that we spent, 8, 10, 12 hours talking about just a few weeks ago, all that regular stuff. And so it's hard to look forward without having a lot of certainty. But we're moving forward to look at the winter and spring schedules. We're going to be sending those out for the faculty leads to take a look at in the next week, by next Friday. And then just one last item is that we have submitted a distance education. What they asked for at the Chancellor's office was a blanket addendum. And what they've asked for at the accrediting commission is a blanket addendum that covers us for this spring for doing our enhanced virtual education courses. And that we will be revisiting that if we need to for summer and or fall. Those are a little bit more complicated processes, so I'll be working with your faculty senate to really make sure that we're doing what we need to and what's right for the college, for the curriculum, for our instruction, and for the students. So those are just a few small updates on things. And then I want to give you a little bit more information. This is maybe a little ahead of the game, but I want you to be thinking about this as you move into this term. And we're getting a lot of guidance from the Chancellor's office about the different grading options that students have and the different ways that might impact their education this spring for us here at LTCC. So I want you to have the information so that if students have questions, you have a place to start. And then obviously you can always direct them to enrollment services or to the instruction office for any additional information. So there are a number of memos. I won't try to click on this right now. It will be in the presentation and we'll send it out, but check the Chancellor's office if you want the specific guidance. There is a link here. And they post all of their memos and their guidance information if you want more details on their website. So the first grading symbol that a lot of you have probably already used in the past is an incomplete. And there's really no change in the use of the incomplete. The incomplete is really reserved for students who are doing great up to the end of a term and then something happens at the end of the term. That means that they need more time. So during this period, if you get to that position and you have students at the end of a term where you think, okay, this is a good opportunity maybe to use an incomplete grade, you can work on that with the student to determine when that work needs to be made up, and what work in particular does need to be made up. But that really is something that happens late in the term for the incompletes. One of the newer symbols that maybe you haven't used up to this point is called an in progress symbol. And that is only really for courses that might go past the normal end of a term. So we don't really have that situation right now because our term ends at the end of the year, but some colleges who were in the middle of their semester when all of this started to go down, they had to extend their term, or they had courses that they had to suspend for a period, and they were expected to pick them up after the term ended. We may have some situations like that, but this is really only for courses if you have to stop holding your course and resume after the term ends and extend past the end of the term. So that's the in progress grade. And you can always ask, if you get to a situation you think, oh, maybe this is for me or for my class, please ask. One of the symbols that I think is going to really come into play quite a bit, and we may even want, I know there were some of you who had courses that at the end of the winter term, maybe you had some students who just kind of disappeared. And you thought, well, are they coming back? Did they mean to disappear? Did something happen? Are they personally impacted by COVID-19? This is perhaps, and for the spring term, this is the symbol that's probably going to be used quite a bit, the grading symbol, which is an excused withdrawal. And some of the language and the guidance from the Chancellor's office really is creating flexibility for students, because they just don't want students and their educational plans and their educational progress to be impacted by this situation negatively. So, excuse me, one of the new rules is that students can withdraw at any time during the term. In related to extraordinary circumstances, of which COVID-19 is considered a part, they can withdraw at any time and receive an excused withdrawal assignment of that grade, that symbol. And that will not affect their academic probation, their ability to repeat a course, or their academic progress. So some colleges are saying we're not giving any W's. Any withdrawal at this point is going to be an excused withdrawal. I think if you have any questions about that, or individual students, please work with the instruction office or enrollment services.
And I would just add to that, Michelle, just so faculty know what we've conveyed to students, because we did have a student forum over spring break, and we've put out some messages to students. As students are concerned about, wait, what if I enroll and something happens to me or somebody in my immediate family that I have to, basically leave school? And so we did let students know that this is an additional option that's been put out there at by the Chancellor's office just for that purpose. And the intent was they don't want students to not enroll due to fear of something COVID related impacting their household, their livelihood, and so more gives them a little more freedom to say, stay the course, continue to take classes, and if something does happen, you have this off ramp. So I think it's probably, as an institution, it's great if we could, consistently reinforce that message to students. I mean, obviously we don't want to encourage withdrawal, but we want to let students know that this is an option that they have if, something, related to this emergency, which is, more far reaching than just a health emergency, and as an economic emergency, impacts them.
Yeah, good points, Jeff. Thank you for updating this group on that. And I think the other key with the excused withdrawal is that they've changed the guidance on refunds so that a refund can happen at any point in the term. Used to be, under normal circumstances, the refund has to happen in the first 2 weeks or 10% of the course. And right now, if a student has an excused withdrawal, that refund can be awarded to them at any point. And again, the excused withdrawal is not counted in any kind of calculations nor in their attempts for withdrawal limits. Yeah, Lori.
Treva had her hand up.
Normally I try to, send out messages to my online students, oh, it's the last day to withdraw or refund. So I shouldn't be sending those messages out. Is that right? So you're saying that, the ones that are in the schedule. So I shouldn't just, like you said, just let it kind of go and see what happens. Okay.
Yeah, that is true. They're not going to be limited if they, now, I mean, we haven't necessarily had the conversation like, what if they withdraw for some other reason? I mean, we're kind of assuming that a withdrawal at this point is going to be related to the challenges related to COVID-19. And so I don't think you need to make a big deal out of any of the deadlines for withdrawals at this point. They will be allowed to withdraw and they will be allowed a refund.
Okay. All right. I'll make sure
Yeah.
Don't send that one out today. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think, Treva, it's more if you have a student that maybe approaches you and says, I'm uncertain. It looks like I might be losing my job due to the pandemic, or, I'm in this, a lot of people in my household, I'm worried about my ability to continue. Letting them know that they have the flexibility to continue and have this EW plus a full refund, kind of, they can keep trying. And if they don't drop out till you really hit the hurdle, basically. And then there was a question, there's 2 questions in the chat, Michelle, that might be timely to respond to right now.
These grade categories, Kurt, are system-wide. This is the direction. These statements have been taken directly out of the Chancellor's Office guidance. So those should be applied across the system. And if there is no extra requirement for a withdrawal, for the student to do a late withdrawal or anything like that, we've had to do petitions in the past where if a student gets past the last 2 or the first 2 period of withdrawal, they have to petition to get a withdrawal. They don't have to do extra paperwork, but I would say if a student just goes missing and doesn't indicate that they are choosing to withdraw, then that's going to be a more challenging situation. You should maybe reach out to the instruction office, let us know. We can try to follow up with counseling staff and in the instruction office with that student and say, are you intending to withdraw here, or are you just, have you just disappeared? So Luann will try to stay in contact with us. Typically we always have students who just kind of, something happens and they go on about their business, but we want to let them know that if they are intending to withdraw, that they have the capability to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Pass, no pass is the other grading option that they've really created some flexibility with through the Chancellor's Office. So the goal of expanding the pass, no pass options are really so that students are not negatively affected. Just what Jeff was saying, that we don't want people not to not register because they're afraid, and we don't want them to get themselves into a situation where maybe they didn't really understand the impact it was going to have on their family, or their work was going to change or something like that. And maybe they've done a large portion of the class and they want to choose a pass option, like they're passing but they can't complete a certain amount of the work. So a student can, at this point, select a pass, no pass at any point in the term. There's no deadline for selecting a pass, no pass option. The other thing is that if some of you know our curriculum, you have to identify in a class whether it's a grading option or whether pass, no pass is an option. And at this point, the Chancellor's Office has let us know that a pass, no pass can be awarded in any course, regardless of whether that's been chosen and is on our course outline of record through our curriculum process. So those are 2 really different options. Yeah.
We have a couple of hands raised. We have Treva and Aaron, and Treva has a note in the chat about dropping no-shows. I don't know if that's what her question is as well.
So
sorry. Yeah, I saw my hand up from before, but yeah, that's the question of the no-shows. I mean, because that has to do with financial aid and all that. Normally we're supposed to, like online, if they don't participate in the first week, we would be required to drop them as a no-show. So we're not even having to do that this term?
Well, I have not heard any change, Treva, to the drop date, the census roster. I think we're still, that process is still in place. So if you have students who by census date have not shown up, you would still drop them from the class. Yeah, so I wouldn't say, I haven't heard any indication that that's changed. But if you have a student, and Luann's asking how will instructors be informed if a student chooses a pass, no pass. You know, there is a form that we can ask the students to fill out, or we can work with enrollment services. That's a great question. I will make a note of it and get you that information so that we have our process down accurately. Aaron, did you have a question you wanted to?
Yeah, I went to a webinar day before yesterday, I think it was, for the UCs, and they were talking about the pass, no pass option. And it is still specific to each campus for each major. If a student is not competitive and they have a bunch of passes this term, I mean, we would expect it not to negatively impact somebody, but it could negatively impact somebody for a major at a specific campus. That being said, they did tell us that UC Riverside and UC Irvine are allowing pass, no pass for all majors. So if you are inclined to give a pass, no pass to a student, you might want to ask them if they're Riverside or Irvine bound. And then UC Berkeley's College of Letters and Sciences is now saying that they will accept a P for their 7-course general education pattern. So it's leaning in the direction to the student's advantage, but there could be some engineering programs or others that will not accept a pass. Just want to put that out there.
And Aaron, thanks for sharing. Michelle and I were actually having this conversation in preparation for this meeting, and I'm curious if this is in alignment with what you've heard. On the Chancellor's Office webinar this Wednesday, they had somebody from the CSU that was basically speaking blanket on behalf of the CSU and saying the CSU is going to give a waiver. But kind of what we've heard from the UCs, it's a little bit more campus and program specific. And so if a student's trying to get in one of these, you know, they're trying to go to Berkeley or one of these high profile colleges or programs, you know, maybe discourage them from taking a pass, no pass, unless they believe it's absolutely necessary. Is that your general recommendation to folks?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. You said it very well.
Yeah. Jeff, thank you. I have put up some information here from the California State University system from that webinar. And they have made some decisions as a system that are being applied across the system at all campuses that include these things, which is that they will accept a credit or a pass grade for transferable college courses in these terms, winter, spring, or summer. For the Golden Four, for all general education courses and for major prereq courses, that the credit or the pass will not figure into the CSU transferable GPA, and that transcripts, they're hoping to have them by July 15th as normal, but they will continue to accept transcripts through the fall. One of the follow-up questions was, you know, okay, you mentioned major prep courses, but what about major courses and majors? And the representative said, yeah, lower division major courses will also be accepted as a pass or a credit. So that's the CSUs. The UCs, as you note, are a little more independently operating, but they are suspending the cap. This is what the Chancellor's Office has communicated. They're suspending the cap on the number of transferable units with a pass, no pass, that students can apply toward their minimum 90 quarter units. And they are suspending the letter grade for the A through G courses, the general ed A through G courses. And then they are also not rescinding student admissions if the transcript is delayed. Is my understanding. So if they have accepted a student, they're not going to rescind that admission or that acceptance based on a delayed transcript. So those are the three pieces from the UC that we received. Are there any questions in the chat that I need to be?
Yes, there's one from Sue Kloss. Is there a recommendation about whether to tell students about taking a pass, no pass option at the beginning of the term versus the end of the term? So what's our guidance to faculty on that?
That's a good question. I mean, I would think it would really depend on the course. I think, and it might depend on the instructors, but I don't think there's any harm in communicating as clearly as possible with students that it could be an option for them, depending on what they're using the class for. And that it's probably always best to check in with a counselor or to check in with the faculty member, at least to start, before they make that choice to go from a grading option to a pass, no pass. But that even later in the term, if they're in a situation where their situation is changing and they want to change their mind, that you can at least let them know that they have the option to change their mind at any point in the quarter, that it's not, typically it has to happen very early in the term or they can't go back. And those deadlines have been waived at this point.
Thanks, Michelle. Pete Dixon is saying he would suggest if the course is major prep to check with a counselor. I think that's wise practice. And we also have another question. Can someone switch back to a letter grade option from P and P?
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one. I'm going to have to make a note and get back. Who's asking that one?
It's like
Lesia.
Yeah, it's an adjunct. So Michelle, in the past, and I don't know that things have changed, there's a certain percentage of the class that once they get past a certain percentage of the class, they cannot request switching from one to the other. And once they get past that, they can't go back. So is that what you're saying has changed?
Yes.
That's been removed, because if you think about it, the majority of the system's on semester school. And so they were, deep into their spring semester when this happened, past all these deadlines. And so these are really, predominantly designed for the semester schools, but also apply to us, of just opening it up, saying, hey, you may have started assuming the world was one way, and now the world, your individual life, your pressures have significantly changed. So you have this availability. I think to Sue's question, I mean, I'll just tell you, the students are talking about this. I mean, there was a post on Coyote Corner, there's students talking about it, the ambassadors are in the know. So I would probably let students know early that it's an option, but to Pete's point, that they should talk to a counselor and see what implications it may have for their transfer. Because if you don't talk about it, they'll probably hear it from a peer. And, sometimes information from the peer is a little bit of a telephone game and not the best insight always.
Yeah. I think the question is a good one, though, Lesia, about going back. If they've started out with a pass, no pass, and then they want to get a grade, or even if they've started with a grade and gone to a pass, no pass, can they then go back to a grade again? I think we probably, you don't want students necessarily like every week changing their mind. But I think if you find that a student is really struggling and doesn't know what to choose, or needs to change their mind, or needs to have a different option, definitely refer that person to the instruction office, and we can get them hooked up with a counselor and really help them navigate that. But I think we don't want to necessarily have students just flip-flopping back and forth all the time. But if there is a situation, we're trying to be flexible and meet the needs of the student. So this is just the end of that, is that the no pass grades are not considered in terms of probation and dismissal procedures. And as you've all mentioned, that some transfer institutions may need that letter grade in your major prep. So make sure that we're paying attention to that for students as well. This was the California State Universities and the University of California. So one piece that has also changed, and I think, again, this is coming out of the semester schools, but applies to us as well, is repetition. That courses can be repeated. Any course that's attempted during this situation, they will be able to repeat that course, and their previous grade will be replaced with the grade that they get when they repeat the course. So this is an interesting change to some of the challenges that we have for repeating courses with substandard grades and things like that. I think this was, again, born out of the semester schools, where they didn't want students to, get a grade in a course based on this situation and then not be able to rectify that in some way. Okay. And then just the last bit that I've already sent out to you in another email was that we have lifted the waiting period for audits. So if a student is waiting to audit your course and you've given them permission, you choose to give them permission to audit, they can do that at any point this term rather than waiting for the first 2 weeks to pass. All of the other conditions of auditing still remain in place, which is that they have to have completed the course. They should have exhausted the other attempts in the family if that's possible. You faculty get to receive or to get to decide if the student can audit the class. You should do that consistently for students. If students need the class for credit, that auditing student cannot take their spot, and audits don't count toward total enrollments. So really the only thing that changed with audits is that lifting of the waiting period. All right, so that's really all of the grading stuff. Are there any questions about that before we move on to some of the resources that maybe you want me to address as a whole?
May I, Michelle?
Yes, John.
Lori Thorne just asked me about being able to see the pass, no pass. If you go to your class roster to the right of the initial information, there's a column that would have a P for pass or an A for audit. So if people are wondering whether or not a student's doing one or the other, you can tell there. And if you don't bother to check that, that's cool too, because at the end of the quarter, when you put in your letter grade, the system, if you put a C, a B, or an A, the system will automatically make it a P. And obviously a D or an F would make it an NP. So, but you can go to your roster and get that.
Yeah, John, you make a good point. And actually somebody, Luann, has a good question in the chat that maybe is a good question for Pete or Aaron or any of the other counselors. Probably, Pete, I know you've worked more with the C requirement in some of the transferable general ed courses, the Golden 4 in particular. Some courses, a D is a passing grade. And that I'll look into that unless Aaron or Pete have a response as to when a D might constitute a pass, because some courses a D would be considered a passing grade.
If you'd like me to chime in, Michelle.
Sure.
Yeah. A D can be used for general education if a student is transferring to a Cal State University, unless it's part of their major and unless it's English or math. So if a student were, for an example, an English major and got a D in a biology class, they could potentially still use that D to transfer to a Cal State University. But the UCs are a whole nother ballgame. We discourage, they just won't work. Ds won't work for the UCs.
Yeah. So we'll verify. I'll verify that a D is typically considered a no pass, and see if there's any moment at which a D would be considered a P in a class. I'll get back to you on that. And it looks like Luann, yeah, in the courses that you're teaching, English 101 and English 103, a D would always be a no pass in those classes.
And if I may, Michelle, to clarify, our system, I've talked with Dave Burba and Bill Abico, our system defaults the D or the F to an NP. So to Aaron's comment about people taking it, that's going to be the way they're going to, for all our courses, automatically do that. So,
great. And Sue is asking a question, when is the last possible date to switch to a pass, no pass option? My understanding from the Chancellor's office is that there is no deadline for changing to a pass, no pass option at all. I can see that you might be asking about, can they wait till, they get their final exam grade and then change their mind? I will verify that. At this point, I have not heard any specific language about there being any deadline in which after which they cannot post a pass, no pass option or request a pass, no pass option. All right. I'm going to turn the resources discussion over to Jeff here. And yeah, so take it away.
All right, we want to make sure, I think you've been made aware of many of these options, but we want to ensure you know about the additional resources that are available to students this term. Basically, same with like the emergency withdrawal and things like that, where we don't want students to withdraw because of fear of having something go wrong this term and having to withdraw later. We also don't want students to withdraw due to not having sufficient resources. So the first thing is, I'm sure you heard about this. We do have these Chromebooks available. They're now available through checkout for students for the entire term, similar to how we do our checkout for the lending library or something. We originally actually bought 100 of these Chromebooks, and then through a partnership that we formed with Calbright College, they have another 60 or so on their way next week. So the good news is we do have a robust number of these. And basically, all a student needs to get one is a referral basic from any one of you. So if a faculty member, if a student shares with you that they don't have the necessary technology to do their coursework, you could refer them. Also a counselor, any of the student support programs have been doing a lot of the referrals, Equity, Promise, groups like that as well. The referrals go to the email that you see there, ksancho@ltcc.edu. That's Kenya in the instruction office. And then she gets the process rolling with this and gets the student gets a laptop contract, and then they're notified when their equipment's ready and they're able to come in and pick up the Chromebook plus the little case that you see photographed there. So wanted to let you know that this is available. And these are available for the entire term. And we realize, many students may have, maybe they have a mobile device that they've been using, or they're sharing a computer in their home. But sometimes that's not always the best option, especially when you're taking a full load online. We realize that in a lot of these households, there's one tower desktop computer that, multiple people in the household are using for work and school and whatnot. So if you have any students that have technology needs or concerns, please get them referred as soon as possible. And again, with the extra, we had 100 to start. We were a little concerned about availability, but with the extra 60 arriving next week, we're feeling pretty good about being able to check these out. And then with that, also arriving next week, Michelle, next slide, is we're getting some Wi-Fi points also through this partnership with Calbright. So we'll have basically Wi-Fi points that it's a T-Mobile hotspot that the students will be able to check out for the entire term. Now, we don't have nearly as many of those as we do of the Chromebooks, but this is another benefit. We have pointed our students to, a number of the cable companies that are doing, free 60 days of internet and whatnot. We've posted that on the virtual campus webpage. We put that in Coyote Corner. But in case it's not working for one of the students, we do have these. So same thing. If you're hearing a concern from a student, please refer them to, please send in a referral with basically their name to Kenya so we could get that going. And that's the Wi-Fi access points. And we'll start to communicate that. We just got confirmation that those were shipped. So we haven't really communicated the Wi-Fi points much because we weren't 100% sure those were coming until just yesterday. Quarterly textbooks and calculators. I think you're all aware of this. Melanie and her team. Melanie's here. I'll let Melanie, you want to just speak to this one?
Sure. For the faculty who are at Senate, they've already heard from me today, but yes, we are still doing quarterly lending of textbooks and calculators. The request process is the same. The link is on the slide there. It's also on the library homepage. This week, the first week of each quarter, we fill program students first. So that's, Promise, EOPS, Equity, et cetera. And then starting Monday next week, we'll be filling everything else, all the other requests from non-program affiliated students. If a student identifies as having moved out of the area, I'm putting it in a box and shipping it to them. So there's no reason other than it being maybe a little bit delayed. I did encourage faculty at Senate to just keep being, kind and generous with students who say they don't have access to the materials yet. We also have quite a lot of textbooks, a surprising amount of textbooks available through these ebook platforms that have offered things for free during the pandemic. So the Vital Source is the one that I really recommend, and it's on the library homepage. It's also on Virtual Campus. So that is a good option, but yes, just know that students may have done everything in their power to try to get the requested materials as the required materials as soon as they could, but there's a lot of other delays in shipping, etc. Oh, I was going to say thank you for those who have taken this opportunity to go OER, go Open Education. This is just an amazing opportunity to see how we can get students the learning materials they need without having the traditional textbooks. So if you need help finding OER materials, let me know. Let Larry know. We're happy to help. And I think I saw the next slide is me too. Yes. So we are offering the same library services, our math tutors, writing tutors, subject tutors. They're available online through Cranium Cafe, which is the platform that the counselors have been using and a lot of other student service areas are using. And so far it's been working. I know Kevin right now is meeting with some of your students when there's a learning curve, and the tutors I'm really proud of. They're doing a great job, but again, just asking everyone to be patient as we figure things out. This platform does offer a whiteboard. It offers document sharing, and breakout rooms, so tutors can meet with multiple students at the same time in small groups and just help students through. And this is in addition to the NetTutor platform, which is still 24/7, but this gives students a chance to connect with their familiar faces, the tutors that they've come to rely on. So that is at ltcc.craniumcafe.com. There's also a big blue box on the library homepage, and we've been doing, social media blasts and Coyote Corner blasts, but you are welcome to put this link in your class, in your Canvas. And also, if you have a tutor that you work closely with, they can give you their specific URL that'll get students, for example, to Kevin, our stats tutor. Questions? Oh, Leslie. It is a video, but it's not through Zoom. It's through Cranium Cafe, and students have the ability to see the tutor and vice versa, and they can share screens, share documents, draw on a whiteboard. Does that answer the question?
Trevor has her hand up.
I just wanted to piggyback on, the great services, remember that we're able to provide locally, but that free, there is the link already in everyone's classes. I just want to make sure there's not a confusion for the online tutoring. So again, if there's subjects that we don't provide tutoring, that's always a great supplement. You'd be really surprised by what we get. It's 24/7, 365 days a year from NetTutor. And so that, for the students, like we said, we've got a lot of students and we've got a limited number of folks working for Melanie's, Mel's group. And so just a reminder that, a lot of the subjects that we may not usually provide specific tutoring for on our campus, there is tutoring available to your students with the NetTutor. So I just wanted to make sure everyone's aware of the difference between that.
Yeah. Is your hand still up? Sorry, Jeff. We have Aaron with a hand up, and I don't know if it's from before.
It's from before. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries. I'll take it off.
So I would just say part of the reason we shared this slide is, as Melanie's mentioned, this is out on social media. We put it in Coyote Corner. We shared it on the student forum, but we have a lot of students, as you know, that check none of those sources. And so we'd really like to ask you as faculty members of, take a couple minutes and, put it as a link in your Canvas, speak to it in one of your slide decks, or if you have a virtual meeting, really pointing folks to this Cranium Cafe, because there's not a lot of students are still aware of this. And it's not only tutoring, but if you go to the next slide, Michelle, this is a great way to make your appointment with your counselor, to contact financial aid, to contact enrollment services, the equity office, international education. So basically, the vast majority of our student services offices have some number of staff available on this. And so, if you could take a couple minutes in your class when you have a captive audience or with your resource and just point them to ltcc.craniumcafe.com and let them know that this is available, I think that would help us with our usage. I think it's been good usage so far, but we want to make sure that students who are out there who are struggling know this is available to them.
Brad, just quickly, I'll go ahead then and I can create that globally in Canvas. So it's just in everybody's sites. I didn't realize. So I'll go ahead and I can add that to after we get off this meeting, just so that it appears in every single class. So should we call it, what do you guys think would be the best label for that in the Canvas site?
And this is just FYI for others. That last one, jumping all around, and go back to the lab kits.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself, and instead I was getting myself all the way ahead in the presentation.
So the lab kits, the science faculty or the art faculty or folks that are doing checkout with the lab kits already know this, but it's really just for the rest of the faculty, just FYI, that, for some of our subjects that are more tactile, we are having checkout of materials for students that they're able to come up and get, pick up from campus through kind of a secure drop-off area. So that's just FYI for those of you that may be wondering how are some of these other subject areas moving forward. And on to the next slide, Michelle.
I'll do my best.
Yeah, let's see.
There you go.
Also, the food pantry is operational. We had a pretty big disbursement earlier this week. So that is something that is still operational for students. And so if you have students, ltcc.edu/food pantry, the application's on there. It's pretty basic. And we've obviously are reaching out to the students that have taken advantage of the food pantry in the past. But we know now with so many people losing their jobs, and having other members of their household lose their jobs, that there's more students that are in need of this. So want to make sure you know that this is a resource we're still offering. And if you hear from any of your students concerns about food insecurity, please refer them to that. Also scholarships, I think many of you, if you're at Senate today, you saw the presentation from Naomi in financial aid asking to get a little time with you. In your coursework, we pushed back this scholarship deadline from April 1st to May 1st to have it be available to more students. But again, it's another one of those things we need your help. We've posted it in Coyote Corner, but with less students on campus, there's less opportunity for them just to see it on the electronic board and through their visits. So, please share that word. And there's scholarships available for returning students, incoming students, and students that are transferring on, to the University Center or abroad to CSUs, UCs, and other colleges. So just please remind students of that. Now's a great time, especially in the next week or so when they start to settle into the term a little bit more. They'll have about 2 weeks or so to complete it. So please get the word out. Student ambassadors. So also the student ambassadors are available. This email is being monitored not just during weekdays, but they're also doing weekend response. So if students have questions on the weekend, and also the ambassadors are available via Cranium Cafe. And then finally, this Coyote Hotline. And again, the way we've been sharing this is kind of the catch-all. If you have a counseling question, go to Cranium Cafe and talk to a counselor. If you have a financial aid question, go to financial aid. But we've had a lot of students that have just had kind of generic questions. They don't know who to ask, and have been encouraging them to call this hotline. So that's another thing. You could take the number and share that with your students via your materials if they have questions or concerns. And then finally, Coyote Corner, we've been really trying to drive more students to engage on Coyote Corner. It's an important kind of campus engagement tool, but really right now it's one of our primary ways of getting information to students about access to food pantry and Chromebooks and stuff like that. So again, any one of those things, I think Michelle could share the slide deck. If any one of these makes sense for your student group and you want to share as part of your work, that's definitely appreciated. And then finally, just sharing kind of an example, when we've seen best practices from some of our, sorry, Sean, to put you on the spot. I don't know that we got your green light for using this, but when we see encourage, good practices, we try and share them with others. So you can kind of see some things that your peers are doing kind of keep their students kind of feeling positive in an otherwise challenging time. Michelle, are you able to click that video?
Michelle, I think you need a new computer.
You sign up for one of those Chromebooks.
I think she's muted also.
She might not have her sound hooked on either. There's a setting for that.
You look great, Sean.
You would have learned that in one of Scott Lucas's Zoom trainings.
Hang on. Okay. Sorry. Wait. I think I got it.
Hi, I'm Sean Ryland.
Yeah?
I teach chemistry here at LTCC. I just wanted to welcome you to spring quarter and to thank you for joining us. Things are definitely a bit different this quarter, and there's a lot going on for everybody. Online learning may be one more new challenge for many of you. In fact, it is for some of your instructors too. So thanks for giving our EVE courses a try. It's always a good idea to learn something new about the world around you. Also, remember that there are a lot of people at LTCC who are here to help you succeed. Whether it's instructors, staff, or fellow students, we're all in this together and we're all here to help each other. So don't be worried about using new technology. Zoom, Canvas, and the Coyote Corner app are all good ways to reach out to instructors and connect with the other students. This quarter is going to be different, but it's a great chance for us to try new things in our classes and our communities. And remember that everyone at LTCC is here to help you succeed.
All right, Sean, you got some claps and some thumbs up. Again, we just want to share that I know many faculty members do welcome messages in their courses, but we thought that the tone of that, just acknowledging, just acknowledging their students have a lot of challenges right now, and that this is an interesting and challenging time. So, feel free to, you could put Sean in your Canvas shell, although, feel free to hear what Sean said and just paraphrase it in your own words and do something of the same. So yeah, Sean, you're getting some kudos in the chat box. You might want to check that out. And then the final thing, just again, another kind of best practice. One of the opportunities I had in January when I was on my professional development leave, or the first part of it at least, is I was able to take some wilderness education courses. And since then, Clinton's been emailing me like around the clock, it feels like. And, what I realized is he wasn't just sending these to me, but he was sending them to, students who have taken other wilderness education courses, which I've taken quite a few now over the years. And this email, and I'll start, and then Brad and Michelle and others can kind of weigh in. And then Clinton, if you're here, if you want to share any of your approach. But I thought what was interesting about it, it wasn't only saying we're offering this Leave No Trace trainer. It really outlined, hey, here's how we're going to do this in a virtual format. Because I think what the questions we're still getting from students all the way through this week is, well, what about Fire Academy courses? What about science labs? We still have students that they can't envision the course happening in a virtual format. And so, I thought, Clinton did a nice job of talking about, what tools will be used, how to be used, and what the students will expect to know at the time. And he created a little sense of urgency, only 32 seats. So I was like, I better stop what I'm doing and register right now. So anyways, just wanted to share that as kind of another best practice. Brad or Michelle, I don't know if you want to add anything more to this. And Clinton, I see you're here with us, and, maybe you could share, what you've done and why.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. It's interesting. Obviously, I've taken a couple of the classes myself, and so I've been receiving these as well. And I can see how proactive Clinton is, because he was asking me about adding this late start Leave No Trace trainer course. And we were just discussing it this week. We had to cancel a couple of wilderness classes that couldn't go to EVE, and so we added a number back in. And he was asking me, hey, how are we looking on that one? How are we looking on that one? I said, okay, we're approved to add Wilderness 110B. And within 20 minutes later, I got this email, Dear Bradley. So I was really excited about that. And I think it's just a wonderful way for him to stay kind of ahead of the curve and really connected to his students. So kudos, Clinton. And I'd love to have you jump in and talk about your process.
Yeah, so thanks, Jeff and Brad. What I've been doing is just keeping track of all the emails of all the students that have taken any wilderness class, and this kind of email marketing plan I've been doing through through collecting those emails and which courses students have taken and which courses they're likely to take, is just creating a spreadsheet with their first name and their email addresses, and then creating going in, typing up a Word document and going into the mailings tab on a Word document and doing a mail merge. And that way it sends it out to everyone individually, instead of me just blasting, and saying, hey, all, and there's a gazillion emails in the to or the blind CC box, and it's not very personal, so now it starts out dear, and it's can be a very individualized mailings. And I think I have at last count 460 some odd students that I'm emailing all these different updates. And so if we're taking the wilderness first responder or first aid classes, you got a personalized email that explained our whole decision-making process of why we decided to cancel that course, and then prompt you to take a couple of the other courses that are online. So, pretty easy to do. You type it up once in a Word document, go through the mail merge function in email, works through your Outlook, and you link it to an Excel spreadsheet, and you hit send once, and away it goes.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Clinton. I know that we've seen you and a number of other faculty. I know the business department has had some practice in doing that as well.
Thank you, Michelle.
I know that if you need any assistance, or you would like to get some rosters from previous courses, we can try to help you with that in the instruction office if this is something that interests you. But I think the main point is really that all of those resources that Jeff listed, the student ambassadors and the Cranium Cafe and the tutors and all of the resources, of all of those, I think really you guys as faculty are the primary resource for students. You're the ones who are seeing them every day in your classes. You're the ones who know when they disappear and when they're struggling and what they share with you. So we know it's a big job, and we know that you guys work hard at it, and we know you really, really care about your students. And so you really are the biggest resource to them that the college relies on. So thank you for that. And this is an article that came across, maybe some of you had already seen it, from the Chronicle of Higher Education. It's kind of specifically geared toward faculty members, and we will send this out in a link to you as well. It has some good strategies for just ways of taking care of yourselves when you're helping students through this process, and also helping students in kind of basic ways. So, obviously, as I said earlier, you're not expected to be everything to every student in every possible way. None of us can do that. So you have a huge support team on campus through enrollment services and instruction and human resources, and all of the campus is here to support you in supporting the students. But if there are things that this article can guide you toward, I think it might have some good tips in there as well. The faculty resource page on the virtual campus as well has some links. And if you have any information or instruction or guidance or requests regarding that virtual campus page for faculty, please let us know, or even the student page. Let us know in instruction, and we'll pass those messages along to the marketing team that's managing those pages, and get you the resources that maybe are useful to you on that page as well. Okay, so the last part of the meeting really is to hear from you a little bit. I know this could be chaotic since there are so many of you, and we might want to do the raising of hands again. But we'd like to hear a little bit from you about this first week. Did you have any successes that you'd like to share with us? What's a positive that you're taking away this first week? It could also be in terms of what tools you're finding effective, and some of the strategies that you've put into place that you're liking. So please either feel free to put in the chat or to raise your hand and somebody will call on you. So a little bit of sharing opportunity.
Maxine has her hand raised.
Hello, everybody. So we were really nervous for our ESL and high school equivalency classes to go on Zoom. And we tried to figure out marketing and registration and everything. But I've been really gratified. We called all the students from the last 2 quarters. When we've been doing registration forms, we've had a lot of trouble doing online registration, but we will be doing some workshops probably in June in the summer to help students navigate online registration. So we right now we've processed 30 forms, and it looks like we have another 30 who are registered. So we're pretty excited about that. And while students have been, and instructors we've all been kind of, there's been some apprehension. The students who have been working with the Zoom and holding class, every single instructor has had class a couple times already. And the students are really feeling supported and cared for. They like seeing each other, and it's really working well. We still have we're still learning and have kinks to work out, but I think it's been amazing to me that we got through the first week so successfully. It's been really wonderful. The instructors have really pulled forward and helped the students, and it's been really great.
That's great, Maxine. I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, especially because this population is so vulnerable with technology, and we actually have some students who are going to get some Chromebooks. So we're excited about that too.
Good, that's great.
Thank you. So we've gotten a lot of support from college staff, so we're really grateful that everybody's helped us.
While others are raising their hands, I'll read if folks are on the chat. Jason Beaton says, from my perspective, he's actually noticed, I guess, fewer drops. Inactive students at the beginning of the semester. His feeling is most of the students are under 30. Most students under 30 are very well versed with technology, so it's not a major issue. So that's good feedback. Stephanie Snyder says her students have been very generous with their expertise in Canvas and Zoom. They're great and thinks they're making progress very quickly. Anybody else with their hand up, Lori?
Not so far.
Lesia says, icebreaker orientation discussion post, ask students to share a meme about being in quarantine or lyrics to some quarantine themed song, or post some news article about something positive due to the quarantine, like nature, right? I've heard about that. I feel like it's been a great way to add some humor and acknowledge the struggle collectively. That's a nice, I feel like, just from the feedback that I've gotten that's already been shared and some others, is that I feel like, I know we're in a very difficult time, but there will be some positives that will emerge, I think, for us being forced to move to this enhanced virtual education environment so quickly that'll probably hold us in good stead going forward. So, making some lemonade.
We do have some hands up. We have Kyle Sullivan and then Michael O'Loughlin.
Yeah, hey everyone. It's just, it was exciting to finally get this up and running online. We've been talking about doing the emergency responder class hybrid because the EMT has gone that way. And so I was really excited to get it up. Thanks, Treva and Scott, for all your help doing so. And I had a pretty good amount of students. And then I would say like first night of class, probably 80% dropped. And I was like, oh no. But I'm actually getting a big rush this week of students saying, I'm so sorry I'm late. I had problems getting everything set up. Can I still join in? So there's another huge flow of people coming in. So once we all kind of smooth everything out, I think it's been a great option. So thanks.
Thank you, Kyle. Absolutely. These are classes, emergency medical responder and others that we need more than ever, right? So thanks for your really quick response on that. For anybody who wants to add late, this is for your class or any others, just reach out to the instruction office and we have fillable late add forms that are available and we can help process those quickly.
I just wanted to say kudos to the whole process and everything. I'm one of those people who has always thought of myself as technologically challenged, and I've had no problems. Canvas is just working great. And one of the things I did was I planned to do the Zoom, which I'm doing. But I also backed that up with a pure online approach to the course and loaded all these discussion boards, materials, and everything. But the Zoom is working so well as a live class that I'm not having to fall back on that. And a couple of things that happened to me the first day, Monday, was the area of Gardnerville I'm in took a couple of power hits. And so it took out my internet. And I was out for 3 or 4 minutes, which can be an eternity when you're looking at a screen. And when I popped back in, all the students like cheered and they were going, "Michael's back." And they had all waited. You know, they hadn't gone, "Oh, it's over. I guess I'm out of here." And so it's just been great. It's just been great. I'm very happy with it.
I just wanted to share kind of along the lines of what Michael's sharing. My class was on Tuesday and Thursday morning. Now, we've been together, the bulk of us have been together since September in that sequence. But I was a little nervous, kind of wondering if anybody's going to show up. I had almost 20 students, both Tuesday and Thursday, out of 27. But what was really cool was they were kind of having fun with it. They were like, "Oh, so this is how you're going to do it, John? Hey, what about this?" And they were chiming in with how I can move the people around and get the gallery view of everyone. And so it was really fun, but I really got energy from their energy. They weren't sitting there freaking out about it. And then last night, I got a call or an email from one of my students who wasn't able to make it this week. And he goes, "I heard from some of the students, they said you really did a good job with Zoom. I'll be there next week." So that was kind of like, very good feeling. It's not that big a deal. These kids are tech savvy. They're just having fun with it. And they seem to be enjoying it. Keep in mind, folks, we're talking accounting. Just keep that in mind. Thanks.
Sarah Pierce.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to share, I did my first Zoom meeting this week as well, which I've never done a synchronous aspect to my online courses. And a couple things that I've done that I kind of have an idea from ISP is knowing that all students may not be able to attend the meeting, I embed a secret phrase into the meeting. And then when I put it back out to the students afterwards, if they have to leave early or for some reason can't attend, then they can still get the participation credit. And I've realized it's been a really positive aspect for Spanish because I'm going to be asking them to give us questions that we can kind of circulate and using it as that synchronous, simultaneous response for conversation. So I thought it's been pretty cool. They're a little nervous the first day, I think, but I think it's going to be a really positive part of the class.
No hands at the moment.
I see a hand. I see a hand on the screen.
Looks like Jim Grant has got his hand up.
Solange also has hers.
Hi guys, I just wanted to give you my first experience with Zoom on Wednesday night. I've turned my wife's photo studio into my new office. You see my background. I have one student that had to leave the Tahoe area, and she said that because of Zoom, she could still take my photojournalism class. She's down in Alameda County for the rest of the year. So it's a positive thing for her that she didn't have to drop the class, that she could still take it because of Zoom. And then at the end of the class, all my students told me that I did a great job with my first Zoom lesson. So I think all went well on Wednesday night, at least for me. So.
Hi, everybody. I am, can you hear me? Okay, I am new to the school. This is my first quarter. My name is Solange. I'm from Los Angeles, and this is very exciting for me. And I'm teaching film production. And what I really want to do is thank Dr. Scott and Treva for all the Canvas training, because it's a very complicated program that I would have never been able to catch on my own. And because of them, I'm able to perform very well for the students. And they're very excited, and we're going to be making movies. Thanks.
Can I just jump in here and say that if, we've got some awesome faculty, and Solange, she is a Emmy award winning faculty member. She's won an Emmy. So, and she's doing, work teaching for LTCC. Isn't that awesome? In working with her, I would have never known. I saw her profile, looked at things, and I was like, whoa, cool stuff. So, Solange, good.
Thank you so much, Trevor.
Solange. Carla Johnston has her hand up.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be on the call. I just wanted to, do a shout out to all the staff. You guys have been awesome getting us all rolling, and I know everyone appreciates it. And I have a little bit of a different reflection. John, I've got to one-up you because I'm teaching the ASL online. And so we've had a little bit of challenges with being able to see the signing, across all of the spectrums of the gallery of Zoom, and breaking out into participation rooms have been really good for the students. They have been giving me great feedback. They're really good about that, like turn to the side more so we can see your signs, etc. I think they're more savvy than I know I gave them credit for originally. And then also using it as a platform for interpreting in Pat Hefner's class for photography. And the software's been working pretty well for that as well, as far as being able to interpret as another participant in her class. And so I'm super grateful. I know the students this week were super grateful, and especially to be back in routine and back in community. So it was a pretty positive experience. So thank you, everyone.
There we go. I also want to give a shout out to Treva and Dr. Scott. I took up a lot of their time getting onto Canvas and to Zoom. I did my first class last night. I had, it was a class that was never ever going to be done online. It's group counseling for substance use. I had 2 students who didn't even realize they don't have cameras on their computers. So today we scrambled to get Zoom or Chromebooks, which Sarah helped arrange. So thank you also, Sarah, for getting the Chromebooks. But I got a lot of really great feedback. And so thank you everybody for helping me make this class a success so far. And thank you, Treva, for being there when I was panicking. Yeah, thanks you guys. I think this is gonna be okay.
That may be the highest praise. I think this is gonna be okay. I think it's so good to hear that, especially after the first week. The first week, I'm sure, is going to be one of the most challenging for those folks who are starting in this new environment. So I'm glad to hear. Happy to keep hearing from some other people if people have things to share. I know I've seen some interesting videos on Facebook from some of, I don't know if Phyllis is still here, but I saw a cool photo from Phyllis in her painting class. And I'm sure some of the rest of you are doing some very interesting, unique things. Is anybody using anything besides Zoom, a strategy or tool that they've found to be super effective in a way that maybe was surprising to them?
Barry, are you raising your hand there, bud?
Yeah, there's something that I tried that I was real concerned because I give a quiz at the beginning of every class that I teach, and that gets them into the class. It reminds them what they did last time, and I wanted to do it again. So what I did is I'm integrating Canvas and Zoom at the same time. So I start out for 5 minutes of Zoom, and then after 5 minutes, they have a timed quiz at that moment, at which they have 20 minutes to complete the quiz. Quiz is over, then they come back to Zoom, and then I go over the quiz and do the lecture. And it turns out that's working really well. And then I just grade it and go over the quiz with them on Canvas. So it's kind of an integration or a mix and match of Canvas and Zoom.
Interesting, yeah. And I see in the chat that the World Languages has let us know, that reminded us about the Marco Polo app that they use, kind of like a walkie-talkie app to get back and forth with students and have a visual that can be also a good way to bring your department together if you want to talk to each other. Seeing lots of kudos for Marco Polo. Has anybody successfully, I know it's pretty new, has anybody successfully used the Labster app yet, or is that still in the works? Not yet. I'm seeing Kathy saying not yet. Ralph, I see, has a hand. Ralph, you want to go ahead? There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit discouraged when I tried to go through one myself and the program froze, but I just went through all of them and tried to get them all the ones I was going to use to go through them, and they all seem to work. And the students so far seem to like it, and they don't seem to have any issues with it. And the instant evaluation, how they do on it, is really nice to see. You can see how much they're getting some of the concepts in. So.
Great, very cool. Sean, did you have something you wanted to add about Labs? Yeah, Labster is the science lab platform that the state has provided.
Yeah, it's like Ralph said, it's really nice to have the instant feedback, and for the students to get the instant feedback as well. Just in this first week, I had a number of students that went back through. I have it enabled so that it just keeps their best attempt. So they actually took the time to go back through and do it 2 or 3 times so that they could get 100% on it. Which, you know, in a lot of ways, they're probably getting more out of that than a physical lab, rather than, you know, where they are going to go through it once, and if they screw it up, then they're just going to have bad numbers and they're going to make something up on their lab report later. Not that I ever see that from our students, but, you know, other schools have that issue. But it's a mixed bag. I think one of the reasons the students like it is it's a lot faster. Most of their lab, there's not really a good way for us to make it more rigorous at this point, for us to add on our personal, you know, calculations and stuff like that. So I tested a few of the later labs that have more, should have more calculations involved, and they're still very qualitative. But, you know, for an intro level class especially since I've got students taking intro to Gen Chem that are living in San Luis Obispo and going to school at Cal Poly right now, which has never been something we have been able to offer in the past. There are a lot of advantages to being able to go fully distance with it. And for the intro class, at least, we might keep it, because we have 65 students in 3 sections of intro to Gen Chem, and that's never something we've been able to do before. So in a lot of ways, those virtual labs are really helpful. And from a student point of view, you know, I think they like it, right, Kyle?
Yeah, it's working great, Sean. Like it.
So I wasn't saying, no, I haven't tried it yet. I was saying, no, Labster is not good for physics. So, you know, if you're in chemistry or biology, you can go in and you can download a few simulations. You can look at them. In physics, for one, they have 8 simulations for 4 quarters worth of material. And I can't even look at them unless I download the entire, 100 simulations that they have. I think they don't work a lot with physics classes. So, but there's some other options, and I'm probably going to just bring some lab equipment home and have my students work with me. You know, like Bruce says, I'll be their hands, and they can tell me what to do, and we'll collect data, and, you know, there's options, but Labster hasn't been good for physics.
Gotcha. You'll be creative. You'll be, you know, using your canned goods to create physics experiments. Thank you. Other people want to share any positives from the first week, and then we'll move on to, I'm sure there have been some challenges. So we'll move on to the challenges, but I want to give an opportunity for people to share good strategies as well.
Yeah, just one other thing is that I think for a lot of people, I've done some online classes, but not quite real-time ones. So I got experience doing this, but I think the first time through, you got to set your expectations kind of in the middle there, because there's so much you can do with the Zoom and discussions and all that stuff. And some of that is great, but sometimes you get so kind of off on trying to do one thing, and you really should just stick to the basics, I think, the first time through. And I think the more anybody uses it, the better you're going to get at using all the things that it offers.
That's good advice. I'm curious, maybe some of the other fields we've heard a little bit from Larry, we've heard a little bit from the sciences. a little bit from the world languages. Any of the other fields that might be interested? I see history, looking at the list, English, any more art? Anybody else have anything that they want to share?
Stephanie Snyder.
Yep.
Of course. Thank you so much. See, I'm still getting used to this. I teach public speaking. I am noticing that the last class we did was in A208. So we had that tiered type of classroom setting where the tables in the back. I had 32 students, lots of tables in the back, lots of students, but they had a lot of ability to walk around and really not only communicate with what they were saying, but also with their nonverbal communication. So what I'm doing with this particular class so far is I think I'm going to have to focus more on broadcast public speaking because I'm not sure how far they can get away from their camera, and I just don't know how the logistics of that are going to work out. But broadcast public speaking, I will show them some videos and that sort of thing. And we will make sure that at least they're good to go as far as Zoom and any kind of news broadcasting careers they're looking at. So it's different.
Thanks, Stephanie. That's interesting. Yeah, sometimes the shift of the focus in the class might or the focus of the class might shift a little bit. I know Sean's talked about that with chemistry as well. Is focusing a little bit more on the formulas and maybe not as much on the physical experiments, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So that
just for example, talking with your hands. I'm getting that Italian thing going, and it's like, okay, I can't do that anymore. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. If anybody else wants to share, Clinton, you had your hand up. And then
we haven't done it yet, but I'm planning on for like the Leave No Trace. One of the key components, learning objectives that they have to do is they have to teach a course. So I'm going to have them go out in their backyard or go out in a green space or something like that and video themselves, come back, upload the video into Canvas, and then the other component of that is they have to give peer feedback to their fellow students. So we're gonna figure that process out. But I think recording and uploading their teaching videos out in the environment that they can get to will be pretty neat.
Great idea. That can apply to a lot of areas, I would imagine. Maybe those physics experiments end up being, outside somewhere, and or some of the biology classes, they're doing some work out in the field more independently. So that's great. Well, so let's make the transition then here. Feel free, obviously, to continue to share all of the great things that you're doing. But what we'd like to know now really is, are there things that you need our support with? And I'm going to just share the questions. Are there things that are challenges that you really feel like have been difficult this first week that maybe you want us to provide more support on? Things that you hadn't anticipated that really might need some problem solving? What maybe can we help with immediately? I don't know if I'm breaking up a little bit. I can see I'm kind of choppy. What are issues that maybe might require long-term attention that we can help problem solve with you moving forward?
Press the button, press the button. I am very concerned about Wi-Fi connection issues. That's my big thing. I don't know whether the 5G setup has been successfully implemented up at the lake, but I am always wondering whether I'm going to actually have connection when the time actually comes to connect with Zoom. So that's one of my big concerns. So far, I'm great. And I actually have 5G down at the Carson Valley Inn, where I have my trailer parked in the RV parking lot right now. They've got 5G. So I'm very happy about that. But as I continue to move around, I'm really concerned about the Wi-Fi connectivity. I really make every attempt to check that before I come in, but there's always issues with for example, electricity going down and that sort of thing. So that's
Daddy's truck. Can you shut that?
I'm sorry, what?
I think we just had an unmuted, a little unmuted moment. Stephanie, I would say, I don't know if other people have strategies. I think one thing is, having a backup plan that is non-technology based, non-Wi-Fi, non-streaming. Having, I think, anticipating that in some way and knowing that it's not always going to work.
Okay. Yes.
And being honest with your students. I mean, I think that's one of the hardest things, is just to be vulnerable and say, I'm doing my best and it may not work, and we're going to work through it together, as some of you have said, and you're going to help me and I'm going to figure it out. But having a strategy that's a backup in case you can't get on, how do you reach your students and let them know that there's a problem? And how do they reach you? Because they're going to have problems as well, right?
Right.
But I
maybe
think,
set up a backup meeting time. So if it doesn't work on Tuesday at 4, maybe we try Wednesday at 4, and we'll just set that as a backup meeting plan. If you can't get through on Tuesday, and I will email them to make sure that they know when I'm going to be doing the class the next time. There, I think we got it. Good, thank you.
That may not be the only solution, but yeah, I think that I'm sure there are other things, but yeah, I think that's one option, I think, to just be prepared for, because, and for them too, it's not going to work all the time for them. But maybe, Jeff, I don't know if you're still on, if you were getting bumped off a little bit, I don't know if those Wi-Fi access points will prioritize student use, obviously, but
our contract we signed with Calbright was that they were for student use only for the access point. So those were, just so you know, they were bought by the state for the Calbright fully online college for student use. And then we entered into kind of a sub MOU agreement with them to make some available for our students, but it was pretty explicit, because I know there's definitely a couple of us that we had a couple of issues where it'd be nice to have Wi-Fi. Maxine made a note in the chat here. She said, I checked my router, it was from 2013. My provider sending me a new one. I had the same thing. I checked mine, it was from 2010. And I called them and they say, oh, we replace those for free every 2 years. So, ours finally arrived. So it'll take a little while, but that's one thing that we shared in the all staff meeting last week, and that Diana Nelson, the technology crew, shared, is if you're having internet issues, and I know that doesn't always work when you're in more of a kind of mobile environment, but if you're having Wi-Fi issues, check your home router and see. Typically your internet provider may update that for little or no cost. And typically 2 years is the lifespan for those.
We had
cool. Maxine, you mentioned you changed yours because of my note. That's good.
Carla Johnston had her hand up. I don't know if she still has something she needs to raise.
I'm not sure if this is applicable or not, but we typically have a very strong internet connection due to our business with the video remote interpreting. And we had some issues Wednesday just briefly, but it was super windy here. And when we called and asked the provider about that, they mentioned that that can affect things. I'm not sure if that's accurate or not, but for me, keeping an eye on weather a little bit with anticipating class, if it's a super windy night. And I know, Stephanie, you're down in the valley where it can be windy. I don't think 5G is probably going to be affected by that, but it was just a thought I had. That's it.
Thank you, Carla.
There's some good advice in the chat room too, from Jason Beaton, having the internet company make sure on the street that the wires are up to date going into your house. That can be there's a link to Spectrum, the speed test from Scott, and also tethering to your phone potentially. One of the questions is from Brian Yerian, and the question is, how do we, what's the status of getting the technology from our offices? That you filled out the forms at the beginning of this week. We had indicated a 72-hour at least turnaround. So I did just meet with the risk.
72 hours was the minimum, meaning don't expect anything. Don't expect to hear anything before 72 hours.
Good clarification. We did just check meet with the risk management team this morning, and I got an update that they are working on verifying all of those requests and kind of sorting them and getting the information, and are moving toward that. It shouldn't be too much longer. I didn't get an exact date. Jeff, maybe you have a little bit more specifics on that, but I know they are.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. What I understood from my conversation yesterday with them was, I mean, if you can imagine, we put out that note and then every request from campus all came in at once. So the 72 hours was kind of assuming that there would be some staggering requests, but they got, basically all the requests at once. And so what they need to do is actually go to your location and actually determine if your screen could even be supported with a laptop. Because in some cases, some of the screens, due to the VGA connection or due to the need of a certain video card, can't be supported by a laptop. So they're going around checking those individual stations and then marking it. But my understanding is that, technology is going to be rolling out to staff starting next week. I put one in immediately, obviously I saw that form and put it in. I haven't heard back, but I suspect it's going to be, a couple of us are going to get the requests, and it's not all going to be on Monday, but it'll probably be over the duration of the week when they start, having 15 people come in day one, another dozen come in on day 2 or so, as they try and do that. And they're also just trying to continually manage social distancing and not inviting a bunch of people to campus all at once. So, but my understanding is, expect to hear back early next week.
Ralph, did you have another question or something you needed to say?
I was just going to say that this is the first time I've noticed that the internet is slowed down because of all the traffic on it, and I'm told it's a function of cable networks, because the way they are wired, if all of a sudden a lot more people are doing streaming or something like that, and I, like several times in this meeting, I got a little sign that comes up and says your internet connection is unstable. And I've got basically a nested set of Eero's Wi-Fi, which they give you 100 MB per second through your whole house, which, it's not the Wi-Fi that's unstable, it's the actual internet. So I don't know if anybody else has noticed that, but I know if I was at my house in Tahoe, I'm on DSL out in Christmas Valley, and I'm sure that's not working that well.
Kyle Sullivan?
Yeah, just a quick tech question, and I apologize for missing this in the Zoom trainings, but I'm unfamiliar, and we kind of had a problem the first lecture, how to sync up the sound when you're in a Zoom lecture, when you're sharing your screen, watching a video from like another website, how to make everyone hear that.
There's a preference right when you log on. Brian Yering had an issue with it and he fixed it. So it's just a preference there that you click. It's the leftmost preference that says when you're Zooming to share your computer sound. And once you do it initially, it should be set up going forward, because I've never had an issue with it.
Great. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
There we go. Kyle, the other thing I've seen is, the little green bar that shows up when you're doing the screen share. There's a little drop-down menu you can click on there while you're in the screen share. And one of the options is share my computer's sound as well. If you don't want it to be the default all the time, you only want it to do that occasionally. That's worked pretty well for me, in that, because that gets around the fact that you don't have to play it loud in your room and use your own audio. It'll,
yeah, exactly.
That's one workaround, but it doesn't work well.
I can just add for students, and this also works for any of you. If you have something that's a really large file that you need to upload, you can come to campus and basically just sit down in a chair outside of the library area, and that area is swathed with Wi-Fi, as well as over on the soccer field, it's got a little snow on it still. Those areas have Wi-Fi, and you can log into the LTCC network and upload things. So if you have really large files or something that's not working at home, and we are working on pushing Wi-Fi into the first couple rows of the main parking lot. Some other colleges are doing that, so students could actually kind of drive in, park their car, and upload. If they have large videos or stuff that won't typically go on that. And then also just a point of clarification. My wife was actually the one who discovered the router was from 2010, and so she wants to make sure that I clarify that she was the one who solved that tech issue. I just keep telling the story because I thought it was so classic that it was from 2010. But Maxine and others, I'm glad that helped you all.
So what about any other concerns, any other issues that you're having? I'm so glad to hear from Wynn that it's the first week. You think everything's going okay so far, but I'm sure there will be issues that emerge. I'm sure that's true too. Yeah, knock on wood, Stephanie. I think, one of the challenges that you'll see, and this is something to set with your own students. I know we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, and some of you said, oh, I'm not presentable. I'm not going to get on the video stream. Sometimes it's hard to know if people are engaged unless you can see their faces and see that they've not just set their computer and then walked away. So you'll probably want to do that with your students as well. Are there any other problems that people are having or concerns that you have that you'd like to make sure that we help you problem solve? Casey, I see you physically raising your hand. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, my class is actually easy to do an online class because everyone's been doing a lot of Zoom happy hours. But what I have realized is that it's harder to control the amount your students are consuming when they're at home. So that was kind of a challenge for me, and I just kind of had to say, put down your glass and let's just talk for a while, because we were just learning the approach to how to taste wine correctly, and they were already tasting it before class even started. So it's been fun, but it also has been great because when the students took the class, they said, oh, could anybody sign up for this class? And I said, yes. And they said, from New York, I said, they want to pay out of state tuition. That's great. But I think it was a welcome treat I know it was for me personally too, just to get away and do a little Zoom happy hour with people you don't see every day in your house. So that was important and fun. And so, yeah, if any of you guys want to take the class, it's Wednesday nights. So excuse yourself for a Zoom happy hour.
And I will sign the late ad form to have you join Wines of California.
Yes.
That's great. I had something that kind of has been on my mind that I wanted to share with you all. And that's that, everybody except for Casey maybe and her students are, feeling a lot of pressure. Maybe they've discovered a way of managing that pressure through taking the wine class. But people are feeling pressure. I think students are feeling a lot of pressure. And sometimes what we've done is we've gone from being able to walk down the hall and check in with somebody or pull a student aside in a class and say, hey, how's it going? You seem a little off today, to having everything in writing or in Zoom, which is great, but it's still a little bit of a distance. And I just want to, I think sometimes it's hard to convey what you want to convey all in writing. And sometimes I think people have different writing styles and different communication styles. And I just want to make sure that everybody's checking in with each other, not moving up that ladder of inference super quickly, and just assuming, oh, they wrote this thing to me, and that's they were being nasty or they were not communicating well, and maybe they just thought they were being direct, or vice versa. You thought they were being direct, but they were really trying to convey something a little more aggressive. So we're seeing a little bit of that with some students that I'm glad to hear that your students are feeling positive. You know, some students are really stressed out and they're letting us know that, and we're trying to help them manage it. And sometimes they're not great communicators on email, or they're not great communicators in writing yet, or some of us aren't. So I think it's just good to, if you're uncertain about a piece of communication, or you think somebody's maybe struggling a little bit, you know, take that extra step and reach out and say, hey, I want to check in with you. I want to have a little bit more of a personal communication, just to make sure that we're understanding each other well. I don't know if any of you experienced.
Can I share one thing? And this is like an embarrassing moment that I've had in an online class.
Yeah.
Is that I would give feedback and I would put in caps some of the areas that I wanted to highlight. Like, remember it said, and not a star, et cetera. And I actually had a student tell me that it was really demeaning to them. And they felt that I was being harsh. And it was never my intention by putting it in caps. I thought I was outlining or highlighting an area that I thought that, you know, it gave the emphasis, because we can't always use color or anything in the Canvas assignment feedback area. So I was really taken aback and thought to myself, oh my goodness, that was definitely not my intention. But now I definitely changed the way that I provide feedback to students. So I think that was a really great learning moment for me, because it wasn't like you just shared, Michelle. It was not my intention at all to be harsh or demeaning, but that student took it that way. So I learned a lesson from that.
And you know what, Sarah? Let me offer. You're right, because in Canvas, in the inbox, there's no font, bold, nothing like that. So what I do is I put it in caps, and then in parentheses I go, the caps, and they're caps, the caps are for emphasis, ... not yelling. And I've never had anybody get offended by what I write, but that's the way to emphasize it. But I type that in and just protect myself.
Yeah, I tend to do more video feedback, and because I think in a video, at least your mannerisms, like Stephanie was saying, your mannerisms can go, your the way that you're speaking. But it was a great learning experience for me, because it was not my intention at all, but the student felt attacked by the caps.
So there's a question that the chat from Sarah Marquez. Are any instructors not taking late ads this next week? And I'm assuming counselors are asking that as they continue to kind of shuffle students around to kind of meet their needs. So if you're not taking late ads, please maybe let Sarah and the counseling team know. Is that right, Sarah? And if not, if you don't let them know, they're going to assume you are. Is that fair, Sarah?
Yeah, it can just help a little bit with the back and forth. If we know instructors are not taking late ads, then we won't send students to you.
The one other, as we're kind of approaching 4 o'clock here too, I want to just share, one other thing. I saw a presentation from Dr. Luke Wood recently. I'm not sure if folks know him. He's a sociologist out of San Diego State University, and he does a lot of work on just, race and education. And it was about equity-minded practices for online, in kind of this online world. And, just what he shared, and so I want to just leave this as a parting thought with our faculty is, we don't fully know and understand everything that our students are dealing with, especially as this has moved from a health crisis to now an economic crisis. And a couple of his key takeaways were, for all of us at all levels of the organization to be flexible and compassionate with our students, realizing this isn't online education. This is online education during a global pandemic and a economic recession, right? Like, so kind of adding that to our consideration in terms of this being flexible and compassionate, being responsive, knowing that students, need and want to hear from us. And, sometimes they may be perseverating or really concerned over an issue, and just getting the email response or the Canvas chat or whatever it is from you, that letting them know that it's okay and that you're going to be able to work with them on this issue can be very good. And then finally, and this one sparked a lot of conversation, this idea of be intrusive. And people are like, oh, intrusive, it sounds so intense. And what he's saying is, don't assume that your student's just not logging in because they want to be dropped from the class or they don't care. They might just not have their Chromebook yet, or they're still waiting for a Wi-Fi hotspot, or they're still waiting for their book to show up, or they're still waiting for their parent to get off the computer from work so they could use it. So just kind of being intrusive, checking in with them, seeing what they need, say, hey, I saw you weren't at the Zoom this week, shooting them a note. Is there something I could do to help? Do you need resources? Do you need extra support? So I thought those were just some good takeaways for us to remember as we think about our students who, again, are not just necessarily doing online education or virtual education for the first time. They're also doing this under the umbrella of, a global pandemic and a severe economic recession.
Thanks, Jeff. I think that's a really good point. And I know that all of you are trying to be as compassionate and understanding as possible, and we really appreciate that. I know the students really appreciate it. That, as I said at some point, we actually got a message. This is not what I said earlier, but made me think. We got a message from a student who basically told us, this is, as Jeff has mentioned in the past, this is the thing that is stable in her life. Everything else is really uprooted and upended and uncertain, and to know that we are here for her and her classes are moving forward has really meant the world to her. So don't underestimate the good that you are doing and the connection that you're providing to students to a little bit of normalcy in their life, even though the situation is not normal. So we appreciate that so much. Two last things. If you have any additional either feedback for things that are going really well you'd like to share with others, or things that you need our help with, please email me, the deans, or the instruction office staff, and please let us know what we can do to help. And if you're on the call but have not shown your video or participated in some way, can you just drop us an email to let us know, hi Beth, to let us know that you were here, especially those who are the part-timers that we're hoping to compensate for your time today. We want to make sure that you're I see you're all popping on. It's so nice. So those of you who have popped on, you don't need to show us your, send us an email, but it's good to see you, and I hope that you're doing really well. And again, thank you so much for your time today and for everything that you're doing for the students. It really means a lot to them and to us. So thanks. We'll sign off now. You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody.
Hang on a weekend. But have a great
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. Thank you.